Hello, my name's Alex Fergus from alexfergus.com. I am quite passionate about improving my health and performance, and they're well related. I mean, the more my health improves, the more my training performance, performance, and just general life improve. And I'm a big fan of the Oura Ring. I mean, I've been using it for about 18 months now. Yeah, coming up to 2 years probably. So I've got a pretty comprehensive review on my website. And as I'm going to show you, I have a lot of data to work with. So I've been using this device to help me track, my diet, my training, performance, my sleep, activity, everything like that. Seeing how, a new diet or a new supplement is going to impact my sleep or recovery or whatever it may be. So as I've got a lot of data and I do have a lot of experience, not just with myself, but with all my clients who also use the Oura Ring, with the new Oura Cloud Dash, and in particular the Trends option, I thought it'd be great to show you a little bit of insight in terms of how I use the data, what it looks like, what it means to me, and hopefully what you can, what you can learn from this, and what you can then look at your own data and draw some correlations, or understand the data a little bit more, because as you probably know, that the Oura Ring is an awesome tool for collecting this data, and it does collect a lot of metrics, and it's very accurate and reliable in collecting this data. So it's great having all this data, but if you don't know what to do with it, then it's kind of meaningless, right? So it's really great that Oura have released this new cloud platform, and in particular the trends section, because now we can see this data in a nice, easy to use interface. So as you see here on the trend section, like I said, I've got a lot of data. I was using this before June. I don't know when it was. It was a few months, early 2016 when I got it. But I've got well over a year's worth of data on here for us to look at today. The key things that I'm always looking at is my sleep score and my readiness score. Those are my personal two sort of favorite numbers to look at. Activity, I'm not too worried about. I'm not focused on fat loss or anything like that. I mean, I've got a pretty well-rounded training schedule and everything. So my two numbers are the sleep score and readiness score. Why am I tracking these? I mean, again, I just love knowing what's going on with my body. If I start a new training protocol, I want to know how that's impacting my HRV and resting heart rate and temperature. Likewise with the diet, why not get this information, right? Like, we can learn so much from it rather than just guessing and stumbling in the dark. We can experiment and we can get feedback and then make changes where necessary, especially if you are an athlete and you are looking to improve your, training, your sport time, your competition, whatever. The more data we get, and the more useful that data is, the more we can understand what is working and what's not. So that's why I like tracking it. Plus, it's a pretty neat tool to look at how your trends and data is changing over time. So what am I most interested? Like I said, sleep and readiness. But let's take a deep dive into the sleep first. So what I've got here is I've actually rounded my data off to weekly. Given the 14 months of data, the daily markers are a little bit hard to analyze. I mean, it's quite messy. Though if you only had like 1 or 2 months of data, it would probably be fine. And I personally find the monthly data is a little bit too smoothed out. So I like weekly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up some of my sleep numbers here. So I like sleep score. I like deep sleep, which is a big one. I like sleep efficiency, which is, some people like looking at their awake time, but I just prefer looking at sleep efficiency. And you can click the help button here and you've got a description of what everything is. So sleep efficiency is just a percentage of time you're actually asleep when you're in bed. So and I think, what does it say here? 85% is good. So what am I looking at? I'm well above 85, so 80 is down here. So I'm pretty good with sleep. If anyone that has followed my blog will know how passionate I am about sleep, and how much time and energy I spend on making sure I get a good night's sleep. So my numbers are pretty good. If you're looking at it thinking, well, those are good numbers, then that's why. But again, I've spent a lot of work, and the Oura Ring has helped me, improve these markers. So anyway, going back to what I like looking at, we've got sleep score, deep sleep, sleep efficiency, and I will often put in light sleep here as well. So okay. Now looking at all this data, you can see those peaks and troughs. And so the interesting thing is for me, over the last 9 months or so, I've had a lot of changes going on. So September, I'm in the Southern Hemisphere, so September through to December 2016, there's a slight downward trend there. That's actually as I come into summer and the temperatures are warmer. I don't sleep as well in the warm temperatures, especially in Sydney. So I always notice a bit of a drop off. And then I actually moved to New Zealand. So that was quite stressful and quite disruptive. So that's why you're seeing some of the dips here. Then it starts picking up with the cooler temperatures again, and more stable routines and everything. And then you'll see this massive drop late May, June. So that's actually when I went to America. A lot of travel, a lot of disruption. Jet travel, 12-hour flights, and you can just see the drop off. And so this is why I like looking at all this data. You can see what's working, what's not. And the surprising thing is, even when I did go overseas and was in hotels and airports and whatever, my deep sleep numbers actually stayed rather high. Okay, so even though my total sleep score as per Oura dropped off, I still managed to get my good amount of deep sleep. Efficiency, again, this is a good marker just showing how efficient, obviously, your sleep is, how much time you actually sleep in. So I like looking at this because there's no point being in bed 10 hours a night if you're tossing and turning and you're waking up every half an hour. So these are sort of the numbers. If I was working with a client, these would be the numbers I'd look at just to see a good broad snapshot of what's going on with their sleep. Light sleep as well, it kind of ties into sleep efficiency and obviously the deep sleep. I mean, they're all interrelated, right? The sleep markers here. But again, if you're looking at a client, or if I was looking at a client, I can be like, all right, great. Your efficiency is really good here. Your deep sleep's around that hour to hour and a half, which is good. I mean, I want to see about 15%. I mean, some people it's a little bit higher, which is great, but anyone that's below the 30 minutes, I know they got serious work they need doing. And light sleep as well. I mean, for me, there may be a bit of an upward trend there, just given all the changes and stuff in our current location. So that's what I really like looking at on the sleep side. If we look at activity, what have we got for the activity markers? So I'll pull up my activity score. I like walking equivalent. And what else do I usually look at? I mean, steps if it's a client, but that's kind of worked in here. Some people look at total burn. Personally, I don't really care too much about calories. For me, and even my clients, I'm looking at long periods of inactivity or low activity or inactivity rates. Okay, so a lot of my clients obviously are corporate workers, and the funny thing is, I used to be corporate, I worked in an office, and then I become a personal trainer and now work online, do a lot of blogging and coaching. So I actually spend most of my time behind the desk. So this is actually an area of concern for me, long periods of inactivity. It's something that I have to put the effort in, just like I tell my clients now, to make sure they're moving every hour or two, or going for walks here and there, and if they're on a phone call, going for walks. So these are the markers I'm looking at. The activity score, again, it's just a general sort of trend as to how much movement you got in your life. This one I just use as a general snapshot of how many steps and movement they actually are getting. So you'll probably notice a little bit of drop off with me over the last few months. I've actually recently moved into a little rental apartment in the city, and it's winter time here, so I just knuckle down and doing a lot of work. Compare it to summertime and compare it to when I was in Australia, where I was still doing the personal training. There was a lot of walking. Moved to New Zealand, it drops off a bit as now I'm only working from my computer, but it was still summertime. And now you can see the last few months it's sort of dropping off, which is actually quite bad. And you can see the pickup in periods of inactivity. So if this was a client, I'd be saying, hey, what's going on? We're going to fix this up. So that's why I like these screens. So what have I learned? I mean, from all these trend data, or from all the data I'm getting, if we look at the sleep, like I said before, few things I've learned. I mean, travel is the worst for your sleep. You can see the drop off here. Likewise, in around February, that was when I moved to New Zealand, and there was a lot of travel and movement around the country. There was a trip somewhere around here. I think it would have been one of these peak drops. Travel is horrible for sleep, right? So that's the same with my clients. everything gets disrupted. The diet, your routine, the stress of figuring out where you are, getting taxis and stuff. So if you're serious about your sleep, you want to minimize your travel. And in fact, I think if you're serious about your health, you should probably minimize travel, but that's another topic. For me, what else have I learned? Routine, regular bedtimes is crucial for sleep, deep sleep. So again, I know when I traveled, there was some disruption around there, and it actually doesn't show too much. But to be honest, that's when I was actually using some natural sleep supplements that I wouldn't usually use. So I found they help with the deep sleep. But anytime that, I'll go out late for dinner or stay up late watching a movie, I see a drop off in my deep sleep. So, it's when these things drop down. I mean, you got Christmas time, you got 10 minutes there coming into summertime. Like you see those one-off sort of peaks. So when I'm consistent with my bedtime and everything, I get a much better data. And I see that on a day-to-day thing. It's a bit hard to see here on the trends because you don't know what exactly happens. But when I'm waking up in the morning and I check my Oura Ring data, and you've stayed up late, my sleep always takes a hit, and I know it anyway. What else? Heavy training and cold sessions help my deep sleep. Again, that's a day-to-day sort of thing for me. Being able to, you might not see it here. Unfortunately, there's no way to log, what exact training you've done or what diet you're eating. But if you are looking at your ring every morning, you can see, all right, well, on days, yesterday I did that 20-minute cold soak, which I do once a week. And I know there's a much better, deep sleep, just sleep in general for me. On nights I do that. So again, having all that data, you can see the correlation. So unfortunately, I don't really see it in here because what have we got? We got high activity. It's not as well correlated as I'd like to see on the trend screen, but on the day-to-day one, I see it a lot. What else? I also see things like eating big meals close to bed disrupts my sleep. This also raises my heart rate. I've noticed that my heart rate comes up a lot, and my HRV's impacted, and temperature as well, are all impacted when I have big meals or if I eat close to bed. So again, there's no way to see the food you're eating or the time you're eating with the Oura Dash at the moment. Maybe that will change in time, but on a day-to-day, like personal sort of case, I know that happens. And again, with a client, you can't really see this unless I speak to them. But for me, I can pull up this data in the morning and see how my HRV drops off. So it's good. The more information you get, you learn a lot of. You start seeing these patterns, when you're syncing the app every morning. And then now for me with an activity, like I showed you before, I know that it's actually getting worse for me here in winter because I've just been hammering my blog and research and working with a lot of new clients. Got a lot going on the business side, and the days are short here in New Zealand over winter, so it gets dark, it gets wet, like it's storming right now. So all of a sudden I'm like, I'm seeing this data, I'm seeing the pickup in inactivity, and I'm like, I've got to do something about that. So for me, it's seeing that pattern emerge, like I just showed you before, seeing how the inactivity time is coming up. So now I just make the effort of getting out in the morning, going for a walk. If I've got a call, I'll go for a walk. If the sun comes out, I'll just go for a walk. I've also got a kettlebell beside my desk here, and I'll do some kettlebell swings every hour or two, or in between calls or emails, just to keep that movement up. And again, that's what I'm telling my clients to do. And this is the beauty of seeing it on. I should have pulled that screen up. Sorry, seeing it here on the Oura Trends. I know it doesn't lie, right? Like the client can tell you, oh yeah, I'm moving all the time, but then when you start seeing these peaks, I mean, again, it wasn't even happening back in 2016, and now I've moved to New Zealand, only working online, and you're starting to see much more peaks. So the data doesn't lie, and I can action it. I can do something about it. What else have we got here? So correlations between data. Again, I've mentioned a few already, but I have seen a little bit of a correlation between deep sleep and HRV. Where are we? Deep sleep and HRV. And I recently just published an article on HRV on my website. This one here, how to easily measure your heart rate variability, and that's just at alexfergus.com. Where was I? So I have seen, we'll just shorten this. I've seen some correlations, as you can see here, between deep sleep and HRV. It's not perfect, but I know there's a bit of a trend going on there. So HRV, good indication of stress. So the better, the higher your HRV figure, the lower the stress, the more resilient, healthier you are. So it makes sense that if your HRV is dropping off, then maybe your deep sleep's going to take a bit of a hit. So that's one correlation I see. So I mean, you can see it here. Like there was a big drop in HRV, then my deep sleep was pathetic that night. Back here, I'm getting some nice high readings, nice high deep sleep. Oh, sorry, nice high deep sleep, and then nice high HRV drops off, and there doesn't line up 100% there. But again, this is it's not 100% correlation, but I do start seeing the patterns emerge over time. So that's one thing that I will look at. But again, once you know this, it's just a matter of living as healthy as possible, right? Like you live a low stress life. You make sure you're tracking your training volume against things like HRV to help determine whether you're pushing too hard or not. So for instance, I got average HRV. What I would personally do here is I would actually use, and this is what I do, I actually use my training program. So I've got it mapped out in a spreadsheet, and then I'd look at how that matches up with these trends. And I'd see, all right, my HRV was really dropping off around June. What was I doing in those months prior? Okay, that was when I was doing 2 sessions a day, for instance. All right, I could see my trends dropping off, so then I took a month off, and then all of a sudden my HRV picked up again. And maybe I was tapering towards a comp in July, right? So you can use that data really, really neat. It's a good data to use there, and the HRV is a good snapshot of looking at how you are coping with training. Readiness score is another one that you can work in there. Some people prefer the readiness score. Some people prefer just using HRV. I mean, each has its benefits. I know HRV's worked into the readiness score a little bit. Another good one to look at is your temperature deviation. So I've got an article, this one, why you need to measure your temperature, and it goes into the importance of, or how beneficial it is measuring your temperature, because there is a lot of information in there. And so for me, you could probably see a bit of a downward trend there, which to be honest is a little bit surprising and not great. I also track my temperature in the morning using a thermometer. So what I would do is I'd plot all this on a graph and cross-reference it with this. And to be honest, it probably would match these fluctuations. I've been doing some experiments with supplements and around thyroid health and iodine. And that's had a bit of an impact on my temperature for the worse, which you're kind of seeing here with this slight downward trend. So anyway, it's great having all this data, and you can match it all up and start seeing patterns and trends, right? So anyway, how do I track the data and what do I do with it? Personally, I only log into the Trends Cloud Dash maybe once a week or once a fortnight, or when I need to map out a new training program. What I do is I get up in the morning, I take my Oura Ring off, I put it on the charger, I sync my phone, charge the ring, and I sync the data to my phone. I'll look at my daily snapshot, my sleep from the night before, my readiness, and I'll use that information to determine what I'm going to do for the day. If I'm going to train, or if I was thinking of training but my numbers are really bad, maybe I'll push the training back to the next day. So that's the snapshot. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then maybe once a week I'll log in here and just have a look at some of those patterns, see if there is a trend emerging with my HRV. Is it starting to drop off? In which case, all right, you're not going to see that on a day-to-day, but if you start seeing it dropping off on a weekly basis or a monthly, then you might think, okay, well, maybe I've got to change up this training. Or if I'm working up to a competition, I can start working in a taper to make sure I'm getting in the recovery. And again, I'm only doing that once a week, once a fortnight. If I am sort of working out a new protocol or training program, or like I said, I have a competition in a few months, then I'll be checking a lot more frequently to see how those trends are looking at. And then, like I've sort of touched on a few times in here, the data is useful, but it's important that you're using the ring to get, what's the saying? There's a saying something like rubbish in, rubbish out, right? If you only use the ring every second day, or if it goes flat all the time and you forget to charge it, or you only use it for sleep and not during the day, then this data isn't going to be as useful. So you can see here in this period where we've got October 2016 through to August, there's only really been one day where I've missed some data on here. Okay, if this was happening all throughout it, then you'd have to question the reliability of that. Sure, if you just want it for sleep, then just wear it at nighttime. That's great. But know that the data, such as your activity, isn't going to be that useful because it's not been measured, right? Like you can't really draw any conclusions from something that doesn't exist, or if there's a lot of breaks in it. Likewise with the trends. I mean, if you're looking at HRV trends and you've got all these gaps in your data, then the trends aren't going to be that useful. So that's one thing. Second thing is sure, this data is great and useful, but at the end of the day, your body, especially if you're an athlete or you're a competitor. If you feel $1,000,000 and you woke up in the ring saying, hey, your readiness is really low, I mean, listen to the body over the ring. If that starts happening every single day, like you think you feel $1,000,000, but things are getting worse on your ring, your temperature's going down, your HRV's going down, your readiness is going down, your deep sleep's going down. If this keeps on going for a couple of weeks, months even, then at some point you may have to question, right, well, why is there such a disconnect? Maybe you're waking up and just running off cortisol and adrenaline every day, which is why you feel $1,000,000. But deep down, you got thyroid issues, adrenal issues, and you're a metabolic, mess. But at the end of the day, I mean, the data is there to be used and to make informed decisions with. Work with a coach, work with an expert, work with a doctor to look at this data, get a second opinion on it. But at the end of the day, it's how you use it, right? There is so much data here, which is the great thing about the Oura Ring, and then you dash, so you can make some informed decisions. Some people don't want to use it, and they'd rather just track their sleep and track their steps, and they'll use the Oura to do it, and which is great. But if you are a bit more serious about your health and wellness, then tap into this. If you need someone else to overlook it and see what they see, because you might miss it, then do that. Put a video on YouTube and upload it and ask someone to see if they see something that you don't see, for instance. But end of the day, it's your body, and you often know best, and no machine or data can probably tell you otherwise, right? So tune into the body, and actually the Oura Ring can be a great way to help tune into the body. Like if you've never really thought about your HRV or stress response or even your temperature, now you've got some data here to be like, all right, well, that day I felt really good. I noticed my temperature was trending up, or it has been up. Okay, well, it can help you to understand your body a little bit more. Just like if you're out driving a car, or you're learning to drive, if you didn't have an instructor beside you, if you didn't have a speedometer in front of you, it'd be very hard to gauge how you're doing, right? Like maybe you took that corner too fast, you're not too sure. Are you doing the speed limit and you're not too sure? Like it's hard to learn that way. But if you get that feedback, you've got the rev counter in front of you, you know when to change gears because you can see it like redlining. You got the speedometer saying you're doing 60 miles an hour, which is what you should be doing, and you got an instructor beside you telling you, all right, you need a break, much earlier next time you hit that corner. You get that feedback, right? And then of course you can adapt and learn. And it's the same way this Oura Ring data should be viewed. Like it just gives you information that can help you learn and adapt and adjust your training or your diet or your health or your sleep or your routine or whatever you're trying to fix. Anyway, so that's all. I've probably spoken far too long. So hopefully you've gained a little bit of insight into how I use my data and the beneficial component of this new cloud platform from Oura, the trends. Anyway, if you have any other questions, feel free to yell out. And if please stop by at alexfergus.com, and you can check out some of my articles there on health and what I do to optimize my health and performance. Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.